Well, good morning, everyone, or maybe good afternoon or evening, depending where you're joining us from. Welcome to another TLP News live coverage of today's Crew 3 post mission news conference. Today, we're going to hear from all four of the Crew 3 astronauts for their first media event following their splashdown. Barron, Chari, Marshburn, and Maurer returned to Earth in a parachute assisted splashdown in SpaceX Crew Dragon's Endurance at 12:43 am on Friday, May 6, off the coast of Florida. After returning to shore, the astronauts flew back to Houston, where they were greeted by their families and colleagues. Crew 3 astronauts traveled 75,060,792 miles during their 177 days in orbit, 175 of which were spent on board the International Space Station. They completed 2,832 orbits of the Earth. During their science expedition on board the orbiting laboratory, Crew 3 astronauts conducted experiments including a study of concrete hardening and microgravity, research on corn varieties that could help drought-resistant plants, and executed a space archaeology study that could provide information that contributes to the design of future space habitats. They tested new life support technology, installed a combustion research hardware system, and talked to thousands of students during dozens of amateur radio contacts. Working in pairs, the astronauts also completed 4 spacewalks to prepare the station for the upcoming solar array upgrades by assembling and installing modification kits and successfully replacing a faulty antenna on the Port 1 truss. This was the third flight of a NASA-certified commercial human spacecraft flown as part of the Commercial Crew Program, and the fourth crewed flight is currently on board station. So we're going to be hearing from the 4 Crew 3 astronauts. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat, and we'll be trying to answer those throughout here. Conference supposed to get underway here, so stand by, and we will begin shortly.
Good morning and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center for a news conference with NASA's SpaceX Crew 3 astronauts. We are happy to be joined by NASA astronauts Tom Marshburn, Chari, and Kayla Barron here in Houston, and we are hoping to connect with European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer momentarily, who will be joining us from Germany. Welcome home, Crew 3.
Thanks, Megan. We're really happy to be back. Looking forward to seeing Matias hopefully as well. We haven't seen him since we got off the plane at Ellington Field, but it's hard to believe we went to space last November and then just got back this past Friday, and we're thrilled to be back in the midst of the recovery process. And it's great to be. We were just saying how weird it is. I get to see Tom and Kayla now, but after for the last 6 months seeing them all the time and getting to work with them, it's kind of like a little mini reunion, getting to see them in the studio again. So happy to be back, and with that, I'll turn it back to you for questions.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Raja. We will take questions from media that are on the phone, and then we'll take some questions from social media. So if you have questions there, please ask them using hashtag AskNASA. If you are media on the line and you have a question, please press *1 to ask your question or *2 to withdraw a question. So we will start with Mark Carreau from Aviation Week and Space Technology. Mark?
Aviation Week. Mark pregunta, a ver.
Flew in 2012, 2013 for about 5 months on the space station as I see. I'm wondering if you might offer some perspective on sort of the productivity and efficiency and also the camaraderie among the international crew now versus a decade ago. Remarkable changes, about the same. I know there's been some concern about the Russian military activities in Ukraine, and some have commented that that's had an effect, but I just don't know how you might size it up overall over that period of time in your two flights.
So I'd say the space station itself has grown so much. Not a lot of structures have been added to the station since I flew last, but the amount of work going on, the complexity of it, the number of experiments, the full capability as a scientific laboratory is being realized now. So it actually is a little bit bewildering when I first arrived and when we arrived up there to see everything that was going on. Hardly any free space, a space against a panel or a wall anywhere, because it's just packed with scientific equipment. So it's very exciting to be up there. As far as the international relations go, that has not changed at all. We've had a 40-plus year relationship with our international partners and with our Russian colleagues as well. And, being in space together, in my opinion, one of the greatest legacies of the space station will be that we are all living together, all the international partners together, we're working together, we're doing what I believe to be great things, and we rely on each other for our survival. So on the space station, that has not changed at all. Working with all of our partners has been not only productive, but also very pleasant. And so we've been able to maintain that relationship to stay safe, stay alive, get a lot of good work done, maintain the space station, and keep it going.
All right, thanks, Tom. Let's take the next question from Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now.
Thank you, and congratulations on your mission. I think my question is also for Tom Marshburn. You've joined a small but growing list of astronauts who have launched and now re-entered on 3 different types of spacecraft vehicles. I want to get your impressions a little bit on the launch, but I guess mostly the re-entry and splashdown, since that was the most recent experience you had, comparing that with the shuttle and also the Soyuz. Thanks.
Yeah, what's nice about it is the physics is the same. Certainly launching, you're going from 0 miles per hour relative to the Earth to 17,500 miles an hour in low Earth orbit. So maybe a little less difference between the 3 craft on launch. I think the SpaceX was quite a bit smoother, particularly through the staging aspect of it. That was quite a bit different. When the first stage cuts out, you're actually starting out on your parabolic free fall trajectory before the MVAC cuts in and gets you to the velocity you need to stay on orbit. The re-entry, I think we'd all agree, is an enormous amount of fun. A lot like the Soyuz. You come through the atmosphere, feel your 4.5 Gs, but when those drogues come out, boy, it's a wild ride for a while, and then the mains come out as well. So very similar between Dragon and Soyuz. Shuttle, very smooth. I was on the mid-deck, so I didn't have a window when I landed on the shuttle, but almost didn't know when we landed because it's a glider coming onto a runway. But the distinct differences between the three were very enjoyable to observe, but overall it's a lot of fun, both launch and landing.
All right, let's take the next question from David Curley with Discovery Channel.
I'd like to ask the rookies, I'm sure you dreamt about going to space. Can you talk a little bit about what you thought it was going to be like and what it ended up being like? And Raja, you told Stephen Clark, who just asked the last question before you went, that as a rookie commander, you were going to be more of a coach than anything else. Explain how that worked. And we talked about the stash. It almost looked like a Ted Lasso stash.
Yeah, so for me, I think in terms of expectations versus reality, I think from the job standpoint, it was actually really a testament to the training team that it did meet my expectations. I don't think there's ever really many huge surprises where you're working on a system and like, wow, I've never heard of this or talked about this before. So I think from that standpoint, the training teams here at Mission Control and Houston, and also the partners, so we travel as part of the training to all the different centers. I think that met expectations, and I felt really well prepared. I think what didn't feel or what did exceed my expectations is the joy of working and living with the crew. And so, I mean, we had trained together that whole year and a half prior, but actually living with them and working with them, with Mark as well, with our Russian colleagues, it's really just legitimately fun. Like every day, it's really cool to wake up and know that you're going to spend the next 24 hours not only working, but then hanging out with those same people. And that's, I think, one of the things I miss the most too, coming back. Obviously, I love my family. I'm ecstatic about that. But now going back to work, where I don't get to also, have that same closeness every day at work, it's kind of like it's going to take some adjusting to. So I think that was the most unexpected thing. In terms of your question about the command job, yeah, I think with high-functioning people here, there's really not a whole lot of commanding to be done. It's just more facilitating, and I think that was what you're talking to when I talked with Stephen Clark. It's kind of like a professional athlete coach. Like I'm not, an NBA coach isn't teaching the player how to shoot baskets. They're just kind of facilitating the team, doing what the team needs to do. And I think that was exactly what I did on Dragon, what Tom did when he was the ISS commander. I think what all of us do as we take different roles on the station. And yes, the stash. I gave the Air Force the mustache march, and in memory of Robin Olds, the 1 month. But my wife would not tolerate me having a mustache when I came back, and it would also throw off the Dragon center of gravity. So I had to shave it.
That's awesome. Kayla, did you have anything to add about your first mission?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of what Raja said. I think our training is so phenomenal. We train every single aspect of the mission, but kind of in piece parts. We have our centrifuge training to understand how the vehicle is going to feel. We have our training in the vehicle trainer simulator at SpaceX to understand that part of the mission. We have a mock-up of the space station here. We practice spacewalks in the neutral buoyancy lab. And I think all of those things together kind of give you this excellent structure of what to expect, but you don't really realize that that's just a hollow structure that's going to be filled in by this incredible emotional experience. And I think similar to Raja, that's what surprised me the most is, we were prepared, we were technically ready, we were really ready to launch when we launched and go up there and do some incredible things. But it was just this awe-inspiring experience and incredible honor to represent the NASA team and family in that role, and also to have our relationships as a crew grow through that expeditionary living and really supporting each other so that we could get the most out of every single day in terms of accomplishing our mission.
All right. We'll go to Marcia Smith with Space Policy Online.
Thanks so much. I'd like to ask about the spacewalks and about the uncertainty in your schedules and whether or not you found that frustrating. So on the spacewalk side of things, Tom, you've done a lot of spacewalks. Kayla and Raja, you just started doing those. what was your experience on the spacewalks, and what did you think about the spacesuits, and are you going to be working on the design of the new spacesuits to replace them? And, of course, one of the spacewalks had to be postponed because of a debris threat, and I'm just wondering, what is it like to get all ready to go out on a spacewalk and suddenly have it postponed, and what was it like when you were trying to come home and that kept getting postponed? You know, how do you deal with all that?
Let's say certainly part of the job of being an astronaut is just dealing with uncertainty. So we always want to be absolutely prepared when the time is right, but also mentally prepared for some other moment when we something was going to come up and delay things. Spacewalks are complicated, and so any number of factors can delay it. So I was absolutely thrilled to be going back out again, and so I don't know, Kayla, if you have any feelings, or y'all have feelings about your first moments going out the hatch.
I mean, it was absolutely incredible. We put so much time into that training and have such a fantastic support team down here to help us prepare. But again, kind of like the experience of launching and arriving on the space station, there's only so much you can prepare for until you go out the hatch and see the Earth from that perspective for the first time. So I felt really lucky that I kind of got to bookend the mission with Spacewalks, my first one with Tom, getting to learn from his incredible experience. And then towards the end of the mission, Raj and I going out together after 4.5 years of training so closely in the same training group during our astronaut candidate flow. So for us, that's kind of the ultimate experience, and to have that together was really spectacular. And to Tom's point, I think you kind of you're all hyped up for that moment. We woke up thinking we were going to do a spacewalk and then hearing that it was going to be delayed. And so you have that minute of letdown, but we just used that extra time to prepare even more and to feel more ready, and went out and did some awesome work. So I think because we have an incredible support team and an incredible relationship within the crew, we're able to kind of have the resilience to be prepared for those moments of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think I kind of flipped it. I think I asked about whether you're frustrated when things are postponed and whether it was undock. I actually look at it as a good thing, because it means that no one on the ground feels, like Tom mentioned, no one feels like they are rushed to do something. We should never be driven by a date, but we should be based on when we're ready. And I think the teams on the ground are really the ones who had to turn, so we just kind of do what we're told to do. Like, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, all right, well, just tell us when you want to undock, we'll do it. But the ground teams are constantly planning, replanning. You're looking at all these, when's high beta set in, what's the, the orbital dynamics, when can you phase, like the weather. So there's hundreds of people doing a whole lot of work, staying up really late doing that. So I think for me, I think that's actually a great thing to know that they're willing to say, like, this isn't the right time, let's just replan it, and being willing to make that call and do it, I think is actually a really good thing, as opposed to being tied, for some artificial reason to something like what has to be on this date, this time. I'd much rather be safe and ready than just meet a date. So I think, I think it's actually a great thing.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have Matthias on the line now. Matthias, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
I can. Great. All right. Welcome home,
Excellent.
Matthias, and thank you for joining. We'll keep going with some questions here. Next question from Elizabeth Howell with space.com.
Hello. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Welcome back. This is really for anybody, but I wanted to get some insight about what it was like to work with the Axiom 1 crew and about the potential for future commercial missions like this on the space station. So, like I said, any of you, I'm happy to hear.
First of all, hi, Matthias. We haven't seen him or talked to him since we left him right after we landed. But it was actually really nice to be a part of history in which this really momentous occasion, private astronauts coming up to the space station, starting to realize the dream of having a completely commercial program in low Earth orbit, and this was the first step. So we all had our challenges. They did, certainly coming up, experiencing space for the first time, and having just a handful of months to train on what they brought up with them, which was a complex suite of experiments, challenging for us to get our work done as well as to assist them. But overall, it was extremely positive. We enjoyed getting to know them. They were gracious and kind, and hopefully we were helpful to them to get their goals accomplished. So it was all very much a positive experience from, I think, everybody's standpoint on the crew.
All right, let's go to Kenchang with the New York Times.
Hi, thank you. This is for everyone. I have a question going back to the very start of your mission. You had just gotten up there, and then there was the Russian ASAT test. and you had to go back into Crew Dragon for a couple hours, and then even at that, you had to close the hatches. So I was wondering, was this scary? Was it disruptive? Could you sort of describe what life on the station was like during these few days?
Yeah, so I think actually, in retrospect, obviously it wasn't a good thing to have happen, but it was actually kind of a really good crew training exercise, if you will, because we were new, integrating with Mark and the cosmonauts, and so actually it's part of the debrief. It was kind of a good thing, because we all got to see, sort of how the culture of the flow was, and work together as a team, and actually check out using the Dragon as a safe haven, going through all the procedures, and it was a great introduction to responses. And I think it was just another example of the ground teams too supporting us. It was a very calm. So to your point, were we ever scared? I don't think scared would be the wrong word. I think acting with a purpose, definitely we're doing that. But even from the very first call we got from the ground was, pretty much like we train in Building 9. We're like, okay, well, here's where you need to do in this procedure. Start working through it. What steps is the ground working? What steps are we working? We divvied up as a crew and kind of just did what we've been trained to do. So I think we were all pretty comfortable and prepared for whatever the worst possible outcomes, and also, as it turned out, not the worst possible outcomes, and then backing out of the safe haven. Any other thoughts on?
It's a testament to the training. We kept thinking, oh, here's another simulation that they're giving to us. But it was actually a privilege to actually get to actuate all the hatches, to go through that whole sequence. We got to know our space station a lot better as a result of having gone through that. So.
All right, and I want to go back to an earlier question for Matthias. It's also your first space flight along with Raja and Kayla. What did you expect? You've been dreaming about this. Did the reality meet the expectations for your mission?
Absolutely. I think the reality even was much better than the dream. We were together in training. We met each other before, but being up there in space, so now I have one space sister and 2 space brothers. We became a space family up there, and it was just like a tremendous adventure living it, like the 4 of us, or actually the 7th, or 10 of us, always depending on how many we were at a given point in time. And I think this mission had all elements that I was hoping for. An outstanding launch, perfect mission with a lot of science in between, but also a spacewalk for everyone, also actuating the robotic arm, having the tourists or the professional private astronauts for the very first time up there in space. So the transition from the old age of spaceflight to the new age of more commercial-oriented spaceflight, I think, it's difficult to beat this mission. It's I'm super, super happy, and I think it was my dream fully came true, or even better than my dream.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, let's go to Daniel Reguera with Our Drone U.
Hi, how you doing? And thank you for taking my question. I will start with a phrase from Bob Behnken when he came back on Demo 2. He said, "It doesn't sound like a machine. It sounds like an animal coming through the atmosphere." And so far, I have not been able to see any video of the Crew Dragon interior when returning to Earth. Could you please explain the sensations, sounds, and images you experienced at the time of reingress to the Earth? And there is also a little question from our audience that is very often here. In an unlikely event that the 4 main parachutes don't work as expected, is there a plan B to reduce the speed at the moment of the impact? Will you see?
So for re-entry, there's different phases. There's an entry prep, and then entry 1 and entry 2. So they all kind of have different phases. But to Bob's description, I think what's unique about Dragon is well, I don't know if it's unique, but since you're sitting right near in the closed vehicle, you can hear all the valves, you can hear prop pressurizations changing. So it's a very cool experience, especially when you've been on the space station where there's a lot of background fan noise and you don't hear thrusters firing, you don't hear the things. So when you're back in the Dragon and you can hear all those things actuating, it's really neat. And then I think when your senses come back alive as the G's start to come on, it just adds that audio dynamic to it. And then as the air builds, as you decelerate, you're feeling G forces, you're hearing the air sound buffet. That gets like a very loud whooshing. You're seeing this this pretty much constant pink glow from the plasma, and then these sparklers coming off. So it's just pretty much all your senses are being energized and they're coming back alive as you've been in microgravity. So your brain's processing all this new information. So I think it adds this, incredibleness to it beyond even what you're experiencing. And then for the chutes, there's a whole bunch of backup systems. I mean, to include manual backups and hardwired switches on the control panel. There is no, I think what you're asking, like a retro rocket system. There's nothing like that would fire at the last second. But there's essentially 2 levels of failure backup and redundancy. There's a barometric versus a GPS altitudes. And like I said, if all else fails, you can even just manually actuate chutes. So there's quite a few ways to get the chutes deployed, and the 4 has redundancy in and of itself. So as we've seen with previous ones, whether it's a lagging chute or things we've tested all the way down to having a whole chute not even function, and still it works just fine. So there's quite a bit of redundancy in that design, and I think it's to date has proven out to be a very soft ride. For landing, Tom has had the experience of landing multiple ways, and I was expecting to have the wind knocked out of me, but it was actually more like just getting pushed in the back. It was surprisingly gentle on the landing, which I was very happy about.
Absolutely. And along the same lines on landing and splashdown, we have a question from Twitter. Alu wants to know, is it hard to fly the Dragon back to Earth? What do you have to pay attention to the most?
We're largely at a monitoring role on the way back. The automatics of the system are always, at least for us, certainly seem to be right on the mark and very accurate. So largely, we're watching. We know what's supposed to happen. We have the tools we need to monitor what's going on. We're always thinking about if the next step doesn't work, what are we going to do? So Raja, as a commander, was very good at leading the whole team through. Here we are coming up to the next stage of the reentry, and here's all the things we're going to do if it doesn't come out as planned. So we're able to utilize the training through that, but it was a pretty smooth ride.
All right, and we'll take one last question from social media for everyone. Evelyn on Twitter wants to know, is it better to live on Earth or in space?
Earth is pretty cool. Space is a wonderful place to visit. I'm not sure my family would want to spend the rest of their lives in space, but if they did, then I don't know, we might consider living the rest of our lives in space. What do y'all think?
I don't know. I mean, we all had such a fantastic experience. I think you've heard that in some of each of our answers, just because our crew was so close, not just the 4 of us, but the amazing international partners we got to work with up there, and Mark Van de Heij during his historic 1-year mission. It was just really special to represent the NASA team, and a huge privilege for us to have that experience, that vantage point, to represent our larger crew and the flight control teams all over the world. But I think I can't really separate the idea of living in space from living on Earth. We look out the window back at the planet, and our home is here. And so I think for me, it's kind of, those are totally connected experiences. And so the chance to come home at the end of such an incredible adventure, I think, is part of what makes that adventure so special.
That makes sense. Matthias, did you have any final thoughts for us?
I fully agree with Kayla. I mean, it's like, definitely I want to live on planet Earth, but experiencing space is something temporary. It's like I could not imagine being for the rest of my life in space.
Yeah. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much to Tom, Raja, Kayla, and Matias for joining us and taking questions, and to everyone joining online. Please follow updates from the International Space Station at nasa.gov/station and on social media.